I don't know. Let's go ahead and go to our next caller.
Let's do it. Let's go with 2.
Yeah, let's go with Lynn in Michigan. Lynn, you are on the air with Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi. I just was thinking about a time a couple years ago when I thought I saw a UFO.
Oh.
I bet you did.
Yeah. If it's an unidentified flying object, then it's a UFO. It doesn't have to be aliens.
Yeah. What was it flying?
Well, I'll tell you, I was leaving our local library. It was night, and I all of a sudden realized there was this really bright light around me. And I looked up, and there were these 3 bright white lights kind of floating above the building.
Shit. So, yeah?
My first thought, of course, was, wow, UFOs, or a UFO.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if they were small and close to the building or big and really far away.
Lights are notoriously bad. Right? If you've ever driven, in Michigan, this can happen. You're way out on a country road, and somewhere off in the distance is a bad 4-way intersection, and there's a blinking red light to tell you to stop. And there's just one of them. It is so hard to figure out how far that is. I have had times where I start to slow down and then realize I'm still miles away. And I speed up, and then I think I'm getting close. And so light like that without a source or without a reference, so anything that you think is in the sky above you, if there's no scale to measure it to, you're exactly right. It could be a small light that's close, or it could be a ginormous light that's far away.
Yeah.
And it does sound like you saw something and you don't know what it is, and I believe you implicitly.
Well, let me finish the story.
Before you finish that story, though, Lynn, I want to interject with a different story because just to add on with Phil's thing, a pastor told me this one time. He was driving through Houston, and suddenly he saw this big figure in the distance with lights around it and thought, oh, my goodness, it's an angel. And then he realized, oh, it's the giant statue of Sam Houston that's there when you drive into Houston. If you've ever been down there, you can see that. So, yeah, just a funny story. At least the pastor could recognize that it wasn't actually an angel. If it was an angel, or at least he thought was, that would be more interesting. But anyway, Lynn, finish your story because...
Anyway, so I started, coming up with all these different ideas about what it might be.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't seriously think it was a UFO. That was kind of the first thing that popped into my mind, but I thought, probably not. And then I thought, well, those black helicopter things that the conspiracy theorists say, or, these silent black, like in the movies.
Yeah, like the Men in Black.
I thought, no, probably not that. So I thought a couple other things, and finally I came to the conclusion, well, I just don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And I took off, drove home, and I couldn't look back, because when I was driving out away from there, I couldn't look back and see what they were.
Well, Lynn, I am convinced you did see a UFO.
Well, a couple days later, I was driving past the library building at dusk, and I didn't know this before, or I never noticed it, but there's a radio tower behind the building that had 3 white lights on it.
There you go.
Now it's identified.
Yeah, now it's identified. I bet you there's...
It's been identified.
Yeah.
Not flying.
I guarantee, Lynn, you're not the only person that thought those lights were a UFO. I've read some things about how it's so common that like radio towers are specific.
Yeah.
There are these lights in Austin, actually, that they're not in a lot of major cities. And I can't remember the name of them. It's going to bother me. But they're these really tall lights that have this kind of circle at the top with like bulbs hanging down on it. And at night, you don't see the long pole. You just see the circle with the lights on it. And it super looks like a UFO. And those are here in Austin, of course. So, I'm sure people have called those UFOs too. But yeah, I mean, like that's what a lot of UFOs are 90% of the time. It's like light poles or radio towers.
Well,
or just
Lynn, I'm curious if you know what is the most frequently misidentified object that people might...
sky?
In the sky, thank you. That might be a UFO or they perceive as a spaceship or something. What's the most common mistaken
I think it's Venus.
You are on a roll.
Yeah, actually.
Well
I remember
done.
hearing something like that. Yeah.
I've heard that before, that people see Venus.
Yeah, it's very tricky because it's not always there. I mean, it is always there. It's not always visible. It's usually visible near sunset or sunrise.
Near the surface of the ground, usually. Yeah. So, that
close
makes
to the
sense.
ground, and it looks surprisingly bright sometimes. It is a real sight to behold, but if you don't know what it is, then you're right. You don't know what it is. But
And depending on the time of day, sometimes it can look kind of different colors.
it can,
that's
especially
true.
if there's a little bit of dirt or pollution in the air.
Yeah, so there you go. You know, it's crazy because we also live in a time where people can just make some stuff in Adobe After Effects and just put it on YouTube and just be like, oh, look, here's some evidence for my thing, even though it's like totally not real and stuff. And so I have a hard time with UFO stuff because I don't know where the thing is coming from. I don't know who made the thing. You know, I can't. It's hard to confirm a lot of details with this stuff. So if somebody actually had evidence of a UFO, it would actually be really hard to prove that it's kind of legit compared to everything else that you see on the internet, right? Like
With Photoshop and everything. I'm a Photoshop artist, and years ago, I did a whole UFO series where I took scenes over different cities like Paris and
Nice.
Milan and New York, and I put UFOs in them.
I used to do Photoshop stuff in high school and stuff.
I took pictures once.
Yeah, there you go. I swear to God, I did this before the election or anything else. One time I put a picture of Donald Trump riding a whale, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever. It's probably on my Google Drive somewhere, but high school.
What kind of whale?
It's like the killer whale, like Shamu.
Killer whale.
Yeah, killer whale. So things like that happen. Anyway, Lynn, thanks for sharing that story, and thank you for figuring it out. Right, like there was an end game. There's a conclusion there.
I like that.
Was pretty cool. So yeah, if somebody else has a UFO story that they don't know what it was, or they're convinced that it's aliens, please let us know. But Lynn, thanks again for calling in and telling us that awesome story.
Yeah.
That's cool. So.